everybody. It's our first live stream of the week. And you know what that means? It's time for me to gift 5 memberships, which I do at the beginning of every week, to try and match the wonderful generosity that you guys consistently show. So, when you purchase a membership or you gift a membership, it goes to people who interact with the channel the most. There we go. Thank you, Devon. And then they get a membership for an entire month. So I'm very excited to be talking to you about these stories today. Thanks. I'm glad you like the ponytail. I'm rocking a ponytail. I'm a few minutes late because I was trying to get it to look just right. Side ponytails are harder than they may look. But anyway, John, spaghetti. Delicious. But I have to say, and congrats on your diamond badge there, Real Life Quinn. Hey, Cornado, thanks for joining. There's so much negativity. Like, it's either people are negative or like disinterested right now. I mean, it's just, I don't know if you guys feel it, but it's just like, it's permeating my soul. I mean, for a long time, I've been able to avoid it, but I feel it's just become so pervasive. That's right, oppressive, Paul. It's just so difficult. Like, I was very excited to post my Thunderbolts review earlier today, and I just got hit when it went up with like this huge thing of negativity or blase. And it was just really, I hadn't expected it. I mean, and it's really depressing. And I think that's one of the nice things about Sinners, and that Sinners, for the most part, people were really positive across the board. But this was just really tough for me. I thought it was like really bad. I have a boo-boo. I cut my finger. But anyway, I mean, I try to always be really positive, but I wanted to share it with you that I'm like pushing myself through the negativity. I'm just not going to let it get to me. But I've been doing this for a long time. I've been covering the entertainment space for a while now. And this is the worst I've ever seen it. And it's really, really tough. So the fact that Thunderbolts manages to have any kind of Rotten Tomatoes score at all is very impressive. So let's get to the first story. Boop. Oh, look at that. 89%. That's where it was last I checked, right before we went live. It was at 88. And then it went to 89, so I had to update all my graphics because I wanted to make sure I was giving the movie its best chance possible. I'm not even just talking about the negativity on Twitter, Chris. I see it here on YouTube as well. But anyway, 89%. It started out much higher. There are certain accounts speaking of Twitter, that just regurgitate news. Like they don't report anything. They don't add anything to the conversation. They give you other people's reporting like in little tiny tidbits. And people like it, obviously. But they really jumped on the Rotten Tomatoes score of this movie, like really early on. And they were trying to say, it did debut with, as some of you pointed out, like a 95 or a 94. But I was talking to some people I know, and they were like, where are the top critics? Where are the top critics? They were a little slow to add on. And sure enough, it fell a little bit to high 80s. I suspect that by the time this thing is done, it only has 96 reviews. A really popular blockbuster film will have way more than that, like at least 3 times that number of reviews. And because a lot of the more negative people don't have access to Disney and have to wait till they actually see the film in theaters, I think it's going to fall a tiny bit. I think it's probably going to end up in the mid 80s, like around 85 or 86. And I think that's actually a valid score for the movie. See, Classic Movie Lover just said the same thing. I think mid 80s is actually like a B or a B plus. I'm not talking about a cinema score. I'm talking about an actual grade for a movie. And I predicted a B plus cinema score the other day. I said I thought that, we'll see though. We'll see. We'll talk about it. I think Thunderbolts is, as I said in my review, my non-spoiler review, I think Thunderbolts is really low on action. And while I think a lot of critics are like, yes, finally, a Marvel movie that has something to say and thinks and moves away from the mindless action, I think that a lot of moviegoers are like, but I like the action, and so why can't I have both? So, I mean, I told you when I saw the movie at my screening a week ago, I was surprised that the people around me only thought it was medium. So let's see. I think, that's right. That's right, Nathan. It's the pendulum effect. Hopefully they'll settle somewhere in the middle where they balance out the action and the commentary. We'll see what the cinema score is, and we'll see what the box office is. But today we're talking about the critic score. So the thing that I want to talk about first is that Disney, I think Disney's doing this for most of their movies because they really are under, more than any other studio, they're really under fire, particularly from conservative commentators. It's just very tough for them right now. And so the way they've decided to handle this is that they are focusing on influencers over critics. There was a screening that I went to because I got one of the fan tickets. Otherwise, I would have gone to the review screening, which was yesterday. Very last minute for reviewers. And that gives them almost no time to turn around their reviews, particularly if they work in the video space. A regular critic just has to write them out, write out a review. That's no problem to do in time. But it's hard to do like the video content and stuff like that. But a week in advance, they not only invited fans to get those social media reactions, but influencers were very much invited to that early screening. And I think you're going to see a shift from focusing on critics to influencers. I don't know if it's going to work for these movies, but I think that's what it seems at the very least that Disney has come up with. Because influencers, they're not critics. They don't have, I don't want to be negative about influencers. It's just a different job. I think they need an influencer. I would caution to be careful because, I think it's new, exciting and new to see them in this space. But there's some movie influencers that I don't want to name any names, but have become like, their name is mud because everybody knows that they just are saying whatever, they're being asked to say. Thanks, CM. So I think that, we'll see how this strategy works out. I don't know how influential influencers are. They can certainly generate, some of you guessed who I'm talking about. They can certainly generate conversation, but I don't know if they can sell a ticket. Jen says, I'm waiting on Doomsday to watch Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts on the ancillary. Doomsday is when I'll go back to theaters. We'll see what happens. We'll see. We'll see how this does in theaters. We'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about that really big change in strategy as to who's getting invited to movies first. And they want influencers to shape the conversation instead of critics. Critics have some responsibility. An influencer has no responsibility in terms of what they say. All right, so lack of interest. I'm seeing a definitive lack of interest for this movie, which is so weird. Because this is a pretty good score. It's not only a pretty good score, this is a good score. Hey, Tyler. And I think what's crazy about this is that nobody seems to care except for hardcore Marvel fans. I think the pro-Marvel Disney fans are like, woohoo, we're back, baby, we're back in business. But I'm really interested to see that like the anti-Marvel Disney group, the way they're handling it is they're just putting up a brick wall of disinterest until I think you're going to see the conversation, or at least try to shift dramatically on Thursday night, Friday morning, when you see the more conservative people finally get access to the movie and the kind of content that they're going to put out. And I think we'll see how much they can pull the conversation in the direction that they want to. Because I think I'll be honest with you, as I said in my review, there's a lot of bait for conservatives with the conservative commentators with this movie. It's very female centric. Winter Soldier has very little to do. I just think, it's like some pretty like, so this movie pitches a lot of softballs to that group. Let's see here. I see some of your comments here. Mac says you're going to see it in Vienna. I love that. I think people expect Marvel to be like a big event movie. And I think that's true. This isn't a big event movie. Well, kind of it is. We'll discuss in the spoiler review. I can't answer your questions and comments too much while I'm in the middle of the story. I apologize. All right, but I think that's what's interesting. I think I don't see, even though this is an incredible score, I don't see people going crazy over this. People aren't like, ooh, people. I think that you have, and maybe this is partially the influencer effect. I think I see a lot of people saying, well, let me wait and see it for myself, because they don't trust this number. So, but that's weird. Why wouldn't you, when it's such an improvement over the most recent Rotten Tomatoes score? So I wrote them all down for easy reference. All right, and I will say that while Thunderbolts is certainly not out of the water just yet, and it has a couple of other hurdles to go over. I'm talking a cinema score and box office. I think this is a really nice first, test, and they passed. Look at the last. Look at this last score for Captain America: Brave New World. Only 3 movies have ever been considered rotten for the MCU by Rotten Tomatoes. And Captain America: Brave New World is one of them. In fact, in bold are all the post-Endgame movies. And you can see that a lot of them have not done particularly well. Thunderbolts, I said it was like Shang-Chi, and I feel very nice to see that it's close somewhat to Shang-Chi's score. But Spider-Man: No Way Home and Shang-Chi are the only 90 percentile movies. And Thunderbolts is currently at 89, tied with the first Doctor Strange movie. Although Thunderbolts, of course, just hit Rotten Tomatoes and has a couple of days to go before we see the true score. But this is a significant improvement over these other films. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was at 84 eventually. That seems like, again, that's kind of more where I see Thunderbolts settling in once all the reviews come in. But by then a lot of people will already have bought their tickets potentially, and so. I don't know. I think the studios would love to break the hold that Rotten Tomatoes has on audience opinion of a movie. I think it's become a real problem for movies, this number. And it's really not a fair number. As I've said many times before, there really should be a middle tomato. It's squishy, but you can still eat it. Because movies that are exceptional are qualified as a fresh review with a movie that's just good enough. And that's not, I don't think, fair. Again, I was talking to somebody who does not like the MCU, is kind of hoping to see it fail, and which I get. A lot of people are in that space right now. And we were going over some reviews that hadn't posted on Rotten Tomatoes yet. And, we were debating as to whether or not they were going to go positive or, fresh or rotten with how they classified their review. And I said, I got to tell you, this isn't a glowing review, but I feel that still counts as a fresh tomato. It's not negative enough, I feel, to be a rotten tomato. So we'll see what happens. You guys want a poll on tickets? All right, hold on. Do you have Thunderbolts tickets for this weekend? Yes. Yes, going more than once. Waiting to purchase. Walk up. And then not seeing opening weekend. By the way, anyone who's watching can vote in a poll. You don't have to be a member to vote in a poll. Just keep that in mind. Anyone who is watching can just click on, that's right, Polly Poll, Faye. Polly Poll Poll. So you can just click on that. You can just click on it and vote in the poll. So we'll see what the box office is. I think that, I was looking at ticket sales myself on Fandango. I love that check seats feature. And I have to say, a lot of seats were sold. I was impressed. But on the other hand, when I was checking theaters for Sinners last weekend, Sinners was selling like crazy. Like, wow. And a lot of the theaters that I checked, Sinners was selling out. Yet it only still was at 45. So the real question is, can you mobilize middle America? I still think this movie will probably open with about 60 to 70. Right now, remember, it was 70. They put it a little bit higher, maybe 70 to 80, right? I mean, Juan just said 73 maybe. That would be less than Captain America 4, by the way, which would be really bad for this film if it opened lower than Captain America 4. I'd love to see it hit 100, so we'll see. Hey, future movie actor. Okay, so I think the jury is still out on the box office, to be honest with you. But I don't think it's going to be bad. I don't think it's going to be like a disaster. I think it's going to be pretty good. Sophia, I'm talking about the Cap 3 day though. It'd still be lower than the Cap 3 day. I'll tell you what the Cap 3 day was. Hold on. Well, hold on. Let's see what Thunderbolts is right now. It's still at 89. Hold, baby, hold. Okay. Brave New World, opening weekend. 88. Oh, Faye beat me to it. Yeah, 88. 88 was the 3 day. 100 for the 4 day. But 88 for the 3 day. And right now, Thunderbolts is not expected to match that. I hope it does. I'd like to see a female-led film for once do well. All right, so let's get to questions and comments about this story. And let me close the poll and see what you guys have voted. Okay. I'm closing the poll. Well, last chance to vote in it. Last chance to vote. Just vote the poll. Phil says you think 700 million? That would be nice. Like the Batman? Mid 700s? I'd be okay with that. I think it would certainly turn a profit. Yeah, I love Florence Pugh. Although somebody pointed out that as cool as she is, she looks amazing in my opinion. She's not really, and she shouldn't have to. I would love it if this movie did well because she's not exactly styled for the male gaze. But I think she really certainly is appealing to female and LGBTQ viewers. So it'll be interesting to see what that turns out to be at the box office. That's okay, Sophia. All right, so Guitar says, I'm pretty locked into the movie news and social media. Would I risk spoilers waiting till Saturday morning to try and make a late Thursday premiere? I try and see it late Thursday, to be honest with you. I predicted in my non-spoiler review that most of the big sequences would leak. I said I thought the second end credit sequence and the Sentry sequence would both leak, and somebody told me that the end credit sequence is already online, which is just really a shame. So I would try and see it as soon as possible if you're on social media a lot. Dancing Duck 60 says, I have a feeling that people are ready to hit theaters with the weather getting nicer and such, and fans want to munch popcorn and have fun in a movie. I hope so. Let's see here. Glad to see Florence Pugh getting some love here. Gerardo says, the Eternals got hated on due to the lack of action. If Thunderbolts get praise when it would just show the Eternals hate was so forced. It has more. I don't know. I thought the Eternal. Yeah, maybe they are about on par in terms of action. I thought the Eternals had really good action. I thought, the Speedster and the Heat Vision was really cool. I thought the Eternals, I think the biggest problem with Eternals was that it just didn't really have anything to do with the MCU. All right, let's see here. Let me end the poll. Okay, here it is. I got to read it out loud because the results don't show up when the replay. So 35% of you are not seeing it this opening weekend. Well, it's 30% of you are waiting to do walk-up business. Oh, that's not interesting. So 65% of you have not purchased a ticket yet, and 30% of you will, though. Half of that do plan to buy a ticket at the last minute. That's really interesting to me. You must not want to see it on a premium screen. And I think the movie, I got to tell you, I think the movie looks good on a premium screen. 27% of you have bought your tickets already, and 5% of you are going more than once this opening weekend. So that's good. That's very good. Trisha says, I think Disney marketing is using all their money on Lilo and Stitch. That's funny. I think that this is a hard movie to advertise because, I think what's really good, there's so little of it that you don't want to give it away. Shay says, really pulling for an MCU resurgence. I bought a whole row of tickets for me and all my friends. Oh, that's great. I hope you have a great time. I'm sure you will. Mike says, will this still be playing when Fantastic Four hits? That's a good question. I doubt it. I think no. Adam DiStabato says, loved seeing the Thunderbolts cast on Jimmy Kimmel last night. They were excited to help promote the film. Made me very happy to see the cast so excited. That's awesome. I think I like the cast. I think I was surprised at how well the cast gelled. I thought they made a good team. Future movie actresses, I voted as if I'm seeing it this weekend, Grace. Probably not. You skewed the poll. Why? Let's see here. Tyler, I thought Wyatt Russell was great. I was surprised at how good he was. And Tony said he bought 2 screenings, one on Thursday and one on Friday, to get a feel for audience reaction. Oh, that's awesome. You're going to have a great time. Dan says, how does it look when you enter a Rotten Tomato? Oh, that's such an interesting question. Yes, I do. Not everybody needs to choose. I think sometimes the editorial people will choose for you at Rotten Tomatoes, although why would you let someone else classify your review? I pick a fresh or a Rotten Tomato. I could put a score in if I wanted to, but I don't like to do that, as you know. And I do, I get to write my blurb and everything like that. I didn't add it in, but I do have my Rotten Tomatoes score. Hold on. I do agree who wrote that. Sok Lee. I think if Zemo had been in this movie, I think that would have helped considerably. And I think if there had been more Winter Soldier, the movie would probably do a little bit better. So there's my Rotten Tomato. I contributed. There's my fresh tomato, baby. And you can see I wrote my little blurb, and so that's how I put it in there. Trisha says, my son is getting his permit this weekend in New York so he can drive himself to the movie. Do you not want to go, Trisha, or does he just want to do it for fun? That's hilarious. That's hilarious. And Faye says the movie doesn't have a lot of diversity. That's very true, as I pointed out actually in my non-spoiler review. And also I think I mentioned it on Movie Math on Sunday. And I think because of the lack of diversity, I think it's going to lose some business to people checking out Sinners, either for the first time or repeat business. Juan says, do you think Marvel will reveal what the asterisk in Thunderbolts means? And they can't, because it would ruin the movie. But when you see the movie, it's very clear what it means. And don't anybody ruin it, even though it's extremely easy to guess what the reasoning is. Let's see here. Oh, that's very nice of you, Tyler, to congratulate Trisha's son on his driver's license. Rodney Dollar says, does Thunderbolts need diversity? It sure does. It certainly needs, I think, well, let's see what the box office is. I think that a lot of people, are of course open to other characters, but I think they like to see themselves up on screen as well. Adam Sphere says, does it feel like a Vought movie like Cap 4? No, it doesn't feel like a Vought movie at all. I didn't think that. It's a little similar to Vought, I guess, in some ways, but I don't know. I didn't think so. Sophia says, do you think diversity demos will be good? I think that Sinners will hurt its diversity demos. I mean, let's see, but I do think Sinners will hurt its diversity demos. But I don't remember, I don't think that Captain America 4 enjoyed tremendous diversity support, despite, trying to be very diverse, well, being very diverse in its casting. Let's see here. Nathan says, does this film progress the MCU story leading up to Doctor Doom? It sure does, but frustratingly, a lot of that takes place off camera. And I'm like, I wanted to see that development. They're like, we fast forwarded it. And I was like, okay, all right. I'm not ruining the movie for you guys. Let's move on to the next story. You guys are hilarious. You have to wait for the spoiler review. All right, story number 2. All right, hold on. Story number 2. Oh, thanks, Art Lover. That's very generous of you. Boop. Oh, look at Dwayne Johnson with hair. It's mesmerizing. So I couldn't react to this trailer this morning. Truth be told, I was up extremely late finishing up my Thunderbolts review because I had a crazy day yesterday that messed up my schedule. And so, it messed up my whole week, which is like not great because what a week to get messed up. It's like a big movie week. So anyway, I feel bad that although I wouldn't have reacted to an A24 trailer anyway, to be honest with you. Hey, Scores, because A24 has a really bad policy in terms of trailer reactions. And you'll notice that because of that, hardly anybody reacts to A24 trailers. But I sure watched it. I watched this and the Weapons trailer. I thought the Weapons trailer was phenomenal, and I was surprised how little attention the Weapons trailer got. The Weapons trailer should have trended, and I think Weapons just goes to show you the importance of a popular cast, or at least somebody that has a lot of fans online. I think that Josh Brolin and Julia Garner don't really move the needle, and then also the trailer had to compete with the Smashing Machine trailer. But yeah, the Weapons trailer was just absolutely phenomenal. I feel bad. I would have reacted to that if I had not had such a late evening. And that's right, Pedro Pascal was supposed to be in Weapons, but had to drop out for Josh Brolin. And, you know, I think obviously Pedro Pascal would have gotten more attention for the trailer. So the Smashing Machine trailer came out. Oh, yeah, that's right. And Now You See Me dropped a trailer today and gave everybody $119 who signed up before the trailer aired for the mailing list. Isn't that incredible? They literally just paid people, but it was a surprise. But that was pretty amazing. Everybody was like, how much did it cost? Or did not that many people sign up? I mean, that's pretty amazing. That's right. Yeah, if you signed up with the phone number that they were airing when they did to sign up for like alerts for Now You See Me, just like they do for the ballerina, for like John Wick. Like I signed up for the John Wick notifications years ago. I'm still getting John Wick texts. But if you signed up for Now You See Me texts, they gave everybody who did before the trailer aired $119 over Venmo, which was like pretty funny, but also, I don't know, it was probably more entertaining than the movie itself. That trailer looked okay. All right. Oh, let's see here. Atmosphere, you would think so, but you would be wrong. Okay, so the Smashing Machine. I thought this trailer was excellent. All right, so let's take a look at some of the things that I liked about the trailer. I'll do a mini trailer reaction with stills. So right away, I was really impressed with Dwayne Johnson's acting. They not only put some hair on him, but they totally built up the bridge of his nose. He's playing this guy, Mark Kerr, one of the first UFC fighters. Did not live a great life. It was very hard. But they built up not only gave him hair, but they built up the bridge of his nose and also the brow of his face, which you'll see a little better in some of these pictures. But Dwayne Johnson's doing a little bit of a voice. He's not pushing beyond his abilities, but he's pushing them just a bit, and I kind of liked them. It opens up with this conversation in the waiting room at a doctor's office, and I kind of really, it won me over almost immediately. I was like, oh, wow, Dwayne can act. I mean, I always knew he could act, but the fact that he made me feel really bad for his character. I felt really bad for his character because, I think it talks very much, the movie's clearly about this guy, at the start of something that became quite big, but it was a tremendous cost to him. He's in that middle ground. It is based on a true story, at least. There's the real guy. But he's in that middle ground where he's like famous enough to get that rush and to have a little bit of a comfortable life. But he's not famous enough because the UFC was so new at this point that he really has financial stability and he's, in a lot of pain. So that was the first shot. I really like this first scene. That is The Rock, right, D. Thomas? It's incredible. All right, there he is with Emily Blunt. And I was like, wow. At first I was like, woo, The Rock and Emily Blunt spending a lot of time together. And then when I saw the trailer, I was like, wow, what a gift that Dwayne Johnson brought Emily Blunt in on this. Because what a great role for her. So there he is complaining about the lack of pain medicine, he did a pretty great job here. And, his own experience in wrestling, I'm sure, helps him with this role. Hey, thanks, Cat Shack. I mean, he did a really nice job. So that was impressive. Then here's a better shot of how they built out his face. That looks great. They did a really great job with that. I mean, he looks great. The Rock with hair, it is transformational. I just absolutely love it. It's like Yul Brynner with hair. You're like, what? Who's that? I just think it looks really, really good. So that's him there. Then the next shot, here he's starting to look a little bit more like The Rock. Apparently later on in his life, Mark Kerr shaved his head. So there he is, but you can also still see the way the face looks. It looks different. Okay, I think they changed his eyes too, a little bit. They lowered his eyelids, I think. He looks great. But one of the other reasons I pulled this photo was that this was one of my favorite lines in the trailer, where his wife is like, "When are you going to let me in?" And he goes, "It's always about you." And I have to say, I really, even as a woman, I was like, that's a really good line. Because I think that sometimes, a lot of times, particularly, let's be fair, and I think, sad to say, I've even done this myself a few times, and everybody does kind of make it about themselves. About why won't you let me in? Well, I don't feel like I'm a part of your life, et cetera, et cetera. But what about, I love that this guy stood up for himself and was like, just because I'm being quiet and keeping my pain to myself, that's right, he is Ken Benjamin, that's funny. Doesn't mean like I'm not going through some serious stuff. And it's so bad that the fact that you think that I would have any bandwidth for you is like insane. I thought that was amazing. He did it so well and he wasn't mean about it. Like a lot of times if someone said that back to you, you would be like, F you, But when he said it, you were like, oh no, I've made a horrible mistake. I'm so sorry. I really loved it. It was a great line. It was a great line. And I think, I'm glad you guys made the Ken comparison. I love the live streams. I love talking to you about this stuff. The Ken comparison is brilliant because it really does, show you the male perspective and the damage that is done to men by having to sit on their feelings and not having to internalize everything. I just think that's fantastic. See you, Cat Shack. All right, then also there's this picture of Emily Blunt, which I was like, oh, I think she might get Oscar nominated, where he's at an event and she needs to take the photo and she's so worried about his safety that she can't help but cry while she takes the photo. Oh my God, it was incredible. I was like, wow, this poor couple, they're really going through it. I was just really impressed. This is just really, really an impressive trailer. I was like, whoa. All right, so let's talk about it some more. All right, so Oscar chances. Obviously, this is an Oscar ploy. All right, it's got all the things lining up. It's got A24. A24 is distributing this. A24 has an excellent Oscar campaign team. It's from Benny Safdie. For those of you who don't know who Benny Safdie is, he was in Oppenheimer. And he is a director / writer / actor. He usually works with his brother, although for this film, he's flying solo. We'll get to Uncut Gems in a minute, Juan Gabriel, but he also did a movie called Good Time, which helped to significantly change how people saw Robert Pattinson. Didn't get a lot of attention, and that's Benny Safdie, by the way, acting opposite him. And this was transformative for Robert Pattinson's career. And so Benny Safdie, oh, thank you, Blix. And so I think that's where they kind of got the reputation for being able to change the image of an actor. However, as some of you are pointing out, they couldn't really do it for Mr. Adam Sandler. And this is the cautionary tale that I would say to Dwayne Johnson. I hope Dwayne Johnson is just doing this for himself and is not hoping too much on an Oscar. Adam Sandler was incredible in Uncut Gems. It was an amazing film. It had a lot of heat, but it ran into a brick wall in terms of the ability to get Oscar nominations. I think it got a couple of nominations in other places, but it was totally ignored for the Oscars. And Adam Sandler was very bitter about it. He couldn't even get a nomination. Thank you again, Blix. That's right, Keneal. Even Pamela Anderson ended up getting snubbed, although it did substantially help her career. I hope, think about it. This movie has to go up against Sinners, although this is very exciting for talent of color. I would certainly say that in telling these diverse stories. The fact that you have these two movies I think is very strong frontrunners for Oscar is pretty impressive. Adam Sandler, I think one of the problems is that he's, he's just such a, he has such a commercial feel to him that I think that even if he did a great job, I think people just can't take him seriously. And I think Dwayne Johnson might have a similar problem because he's just such a businessman and he's always, he's always pushing the business angle, and he has, he's had some bad stories on set, and I don't know, it's very much, being judged by your peers with the Oscars. And I hope he runs one heck of an Oscar campaign. In fact, I would tell Dwayne Johnson to dial back on his promotional endeavors. I mean, he's already super wealthy and successful. I think that he should kind of back down on like the Instagram posts of stuff like that. And just kind of like maybe fade back a little bit to be more taken a little bit more seriously as an actor instead of a product. And that's the advice that I would give to him. I would say for Dwayne Johnson, this trailer is so strong, his Oscar campaign starts now. And he should factor that into his behavior. Something else that concerns me is a little movie called The Iron Claw, which you might recall. This was supposed to revive Zac Efron's career, and he did a wonderful job in this movie. Zac Efron was excellent in The Iron Claw, but this couldn't get any traction either. And in fact, recently one of the relatives of this family came out and said that the movie was inaccurate. So you're like, oh man, like The Iron Claw doesn't have enough problems. So we'll see. That's right, Adam Sphere. Adam Sandler back in the day was starting to be taken seriously, just like Robin Williams and Jim Carrey. But I think he just went too commercial. So yeah, Iron Claw is a great movie, but it also did not do well at the Oscars. So I think that people are going to be very interested in this movie. I think that it might open up the kind of roles that perhaps Dwayne Johnson can be considered for. But I would just say, go for the Oscar, Dwayne, but don't be sad if it doesn't happen. And it's not you. It's just the industry. Just like Barbie couldn't get any Oscar love. A lot of people feel if you have a bunch of money and success, you don't need the critical acclaim. And I think that Dwayne Johnson, he's like a human. Speaking of Ken, he's like Barbie. And I think there are issues for that as well. The Wrestler did very, very well, classic movie lover, because Mickey Rourke's career was... And he just also recently, ruined it again with horrible, really horrible comments that he made on that reality show, I think in the UK. People kind of got upset with The Rock. You guys are right, after Black Adam. And so he kind of has to come back with fans too. I think this trailer is really incredible. I will mention Barbie forever, Blue Prada. That movie was robbed and didn't get the respect it deserved. So questions or comments about this story? Pumpkin DeShazer's not interested in this movie? What? Go on. Did you watch the trailer? Sophia says, what about that Martin Scorsese movie? Does he have a bigger chance to get nominated in that one? Well, maybe he'll be doing more acting there. That's a good point. I don't think that's even filmed yet, so it won't be competing with this. Maybe Marty saw part of this movie and was like, oh, he's great. I like The Rock. I think he's a nice guy. The name of this movie is The Smashing Machine, which was Mark Kerr's stage name in the UFC. You guys with your hierarchy of power jokes, that's going to haunt him forever. All right, so let's go to the next story of the day. All right, speaking about awards chances, let's talk about another movie that's coming together and probably hopes to do well, because Greta Gerwig, by the way, I believe every movie, boom, baby, I believe every movie that Greta Gerwig has ever made was nominated for Best Picture. She's only made 3 movies, but all 3 of them were nominated for Best Picture. What was the first one? Ladybug or something? Little Women and Barbie. So that's pretty incredible. Let's talk, Lady Bird, not Ladybug, Lady Bird, thank you. All right, so let's talk about this development. So, they've cast the White Witch in Narnia. Now, as you might recall, and we discussed, they were considering Charlie XCX in kind of an Ariana Grande bid, to get a popular pop singer and put her in the movie. That didn't work out. However, they were also considering, the trade said, Margaret Qualley. And you can see that Greta Gerwig is going for a look. She's clearly going to match, I'll say it now, the original illustrations of very pale white skin and black hair, long black hair. I mean, wigs exist, but this is what they're going with. And I think you can see all three of these actresses look pretty similar. Now, I want to say that I actually think she made a mistake. Margaret Qualley should have gotten this role. I don't know if Margaret Qualley can do mean. Emma Mackey looks kind of like a villain already right there. But I think that Margaret Qualley's pretty hot right now. She was super sexy in The Substance. Now all these guys are interested in Margaret Qualley. They're like, she could be Rogue Grace. She could be any character. I see her name mentioned all the time now because it's just such a sexy role. And I think that it would have been, if I were a Netflix person, I would have been like, Greta, I'm glad that you like Emma Mackey and all. And she was in your Barbie movie. There she is at the premiere. But I would like you to put Margaret Qualley in this movie because I'd like it to do well. So that's right. Margaret Qualley is a Nepo baby. Her mother is Andie MacDowell. So I think she should have gone to Margaret Qualley. I didn't see her audition, but I think that there would be more. I gotta tell you, I don't think this movie's gonna do well now. I mean, that's just my thesis statement based off of this casting. We'll see how the rest of the film comes together, but I think it's pretty much DOA. Certainly on a commercial perspective. It could be very well regarded from fans and people who are interested in a new Narnia movie, but I think it just, it becoming a new Barbie just kind of probably went down the pooper. All right, so now obviously Tilda Swinton is the most famous casting. And this role actually put Tilda Swinton on the Hollywood map. It is a Netflix movie, Dan and Drew, but it will play on Netflix. Netflix is putting it on IMAX screens for 2 weeks at Thanksgiving next year, 2026. So Tilda Swinton, and she was a blonde white witch, so I think Greta Gerwig's trying to differentiate from that. And also, of course, as I said, to go with the original illustrations, which you can see here. And that looks pretty great. I think, creating like a sexy, mean white witch is a pretty good idea. But again, I think this casting probably just killed this movie. Now, to be fair, though, Greta Gerwig is an extremely well-regarded filmmaker. I think people don't remember how well-regarded Greta Gerwig is. I think she's an incredible filmmaker. I thought Lady Bird was pretty good, but of course, as you know, I love Barbie. But I also loved her Little Women. I've never enjoyed the story of Little Women before, but Greta Gerwig made me love it. I, in fact, now watch it every Christmas. I've added it to my Christmas movie collection, and it's just an absolutely phenomenal film. It talks about things like feminism and, for instance, I've been seeing a lot of talk, I'm going to go there. I've been seeing a lot of talk online about trad wives, okay? And, feminism ruined the idea of a trad wife, which is a traditional wife. That's the terminology. And I think that Little Women, this version, did a really nice job of outlining that, it's not against men, but that, women have their own dreams and want to participate in society. I've told you before, I stumbled many years ago across an interview where I thought it was a comedy sketch at first because it seemed so ridiculous, because the male interviewer was saying that women affect the world through their children and their husbands at the breakfast table in the morning. And so the women stay home, but their husbands and their kids go out into the world and they affect the world through them instead of directly. And I was like, is this a sketch? Is this a comedy sketch? And then I was like, oh wait, that's Gloria Steinem. This is a real conversation. So I think that it's not that women don't want to be married and have kids and have a nice family. Hey, Bubbles. But I think it's really the question of, do they want to be kind of stuck at home and not be able to be out in the world? And I think that's Little Women, I think, does a great job. One of the sisters does become a trad wife, and I think the movie is pretty accurate in some of the hurdles that she therefore finds herself facing that she hadn't anticipated. And that people often leave out when talking about becoming a trad wife. So, great movie. So, these movies are so good. That's right, Kay Walton. Financial independence is crucial. It's all fun and games until you get replaced. And you know what the famous saying, when a man marries his mistress, he creates a job opening. That's a great saying. All right, so anyway, these movies have such fabulous commentary on female situations and the like. And also, I want to point out to you that Greta Gerwig did an incredible job with Ken and commentary on the male situation. So Greta Gerwig is incredibly intelligent and very capable. So I'm very interested in seeing what she comes up with here. Although I will say that even though I'm such a big fan of Greta Gerwig, even this casting has made me less interested in the movie. I go from obviously I'll want to review it, but I went from IMAX baby to I could watch that at home. Especially when I watch it again with friends and family. I'll be like, we could just stream it in a couple of weeks. Hey, Eduardo. And then, obviously, what's really going to hurt it is, hold on. Meryl Streep is Aslan. I love Meryl Streep, but this is the worst idea I ever heard. I tell you, I'm in the trenches, baby. I'm in the trenches all day, every day. And I think that having a female-centric Narnia is probably the worst thing you could do. It hasn't been officially confirmed, but the trades have said that she is in talks. I would advise Meryl Streep against this to such a degree. I'd be like, Meryl, you don't need to do this. Aslan is supposed to be a Jesus stand-in. I really think this is a really big mistake. I'm not saying that maybe Greta Gerwig has a good idea, but I'm just telling you that ain't nobody going to get far enough to hear what it is. I think the strongest creatives have a good creative hat and a business hat. And I'd be like, your movie will just not get off the launch pad if this is what you do. And it just seems smaller. I think when you have Emma Mackey and Meryl Streep, it just doesn't seem like a must-see in theaters. It doesn't seem like a big deal. Mr. Magic said God has no gender, but Jesus did. And Aslan is a Jesus stand-in, I thought. That's right, Sherm. This is a movie for a lot of, it's supposed to appeal to Christians, and that's not going to go over very well with them. Oh, that's right, Harlequin Dove. Aslan would have to even look different. It would be a lioness with no mane. What? Whew. I like the Charlton Heston version of God, where God speaks in your own voice. I was watching the making of the Ten Commandments around Easter, and he said that he asked Cecil B. DeMille if he could also be the voice of God, because you would hear God in your own voice because he would speak to you through you. And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. So that's what I think for that. So yeah, anyone have any questions or comments about this? I think Greta Gerwig just kind of significantly hurt her film. I'm not saying it's not still going to be good, but I think the people who are into it are going to be significantly less than who were otherwise. The Dragon says, I'm already confused by the choices being made. You and me both. It's tough to watch someone make bad choices that are so obviously bad. You're just sitting there. What's that meme of Breaking Bad, Walter White screaming from the car, being like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. That's us being like, what are you doing, man? Hey, Aralysis, thank you. Ben 10, I thought Charlie XCX was the best casting as well, particularly because she was so good on SNL. I would have gone with her. I thought she was a great choice. I really liked her a lot. I gotta tell you, no offense to Emma Mackey, least interesting choice on the board. Of all the people they could have gone with, I think Emma Mackey is the worst choice. Sorry. Juan Gabriel says maybe Greta is Todd Phillipsing herself. I love that you turned Todd Phillipsing in Joker 2 into a verb. I love it. We'll have to use that. Marco, she didn't cast the real Margot Robbie. Poor Emma Mackey. She looks a little bit different from Margot Robbie now. But Margot's booked and busy. She's too busy. Faye says Emma Mackey is a great actress. Well, I hope that she wins me over, but right now I'm not feeling it. And Juan Gabriel says they did it to save money, Grace, which could be potentially true. Although, how much is Charlie XCX going to cost? I just saw a trailer this morning for some Prime Video college comedy where she has a cameo. Paul says, do you think the limited time in theaters will end up being a good idea or a bad idea? I think a bad idea because especially with this casting, no one's going to go. So they're going to be taking the IMAX screens from big Thanksgiving movies and they're going to have nobody in there. Although I was talking to someone and we were like, how do they make any money off of AMC A-List? And it recurred to me, like, okay, I'll tell you a little tea. You ready for some tea? Let me close some of these pictures up so you can see what I'm talking about here. All right, so I was doing an interview. I won't tell you how I found this out, but I was talking to somebody last year, a couple of months ago. And I found out that for the most part, at least for small theaters, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was for big theaters as well, you have to pay the studio up front for the movie. You have to pay the ticket prices, what you conceivably think they're going to earn up front. So if you don't sell enough tickets, you're out the money. I think we all assume that they would sell the tickets and then you would give a percentage of those sales to the studio. But no, you have to give the money up front. And that's why A-List can work, because the theater just has to recoup its expenses. And even if it's not through ticket sales, they'll do it through concession stands. So by getting you to go more often, they'll make the money back that way. That is how I think it works. So it's not a percentage of ticket sales. We don't have to wonder how it's being counted because it's an upfront chunk of money, at least at the beginning. So that's incredible to me. I mean, I think we solved it. I mean, I don't know this for sure. I do know that for a small theater, they have to put the money down up front, which I thought was nuts, particularly for a small theater. AMC can afford to put that money down. But that's amazing. If you bring your own snack star, you're just giving the middle finger to the theaters. But yeah, and also all the people who don't go to the movie but keep their AMC A-List subscription going. But that's how they're able to do it. And I'm not quite sure how the theaters then get there. Maybe they only have to pay a percentage of what the ticket sales would be. It's just very interesting. I think that I don't think we've figured out the equation exactly, but I think that answers a big part of us being like, how does this work? Sean, who is JG? James Gunn? I don't know who you're talking about. But your continued love of DC is impressive, Sean. Daniel says, what if they end up making more? Do they still have to give the studio a percentage? I think they do afterwards, because there has to be, and that's the incentive to keep a movie in theaters longer. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I think that's part of it. All right. So let's go to the Q&A. All right. 10-minute Q&A. So 54:20. So I'll go to 104:20. Ariel says, what are your favorite black movies? Is Sinners on the list? I like your hair today. Thank you very much. Of course Sinners is on the list. I think that's an incredible film. I like all of Ryan Coogler's films, including the franchise he started, Creed. I really think that's excellent. And I interviewed Ryan Coogler for Fruitvale Station. And of course I like the Black Panther films as well. I liked Da 5 Bloods, which of course Delroy Lindo did not get enough credit for. Chadwick Boseman has contributed some wonderful films as well, before even he became Black Panther. And those are just the ones off the top of my head. But yeah, I think those are some fantastic films. Let's see here. MM92 says, hi Grace, what would be your best advice for Disney in the coming years to build back their fandom? I think Disney just does not focus enough on creative and quality anymore. I think that, oh, by the way, in terms of black films, I wanted to also mention I really loved The Color Purple, the musical remake, which unfortunately some people didn't care for, but I thought that was an extraordinary film that I didn't really, I'm surprised it didn't connect. But of course, that's a question for the black community to answer. So anyway, yes, I think that Disney just is too much focused on the dollar. I think that they've lost their personal connection to audiences. I think you can see the strings. And remember, I Got No Strings on Me used to be their big theme song. And now these days, you see the strings. You see the corporate thinking. And I think that's hurting a lot of their things across the board. I've never heard of Garkin's Theaters, Alexander. I'm glad you have a good theater, though, that you like. Sophia says, hey, Grace, what comics are you currently reading? Going to be picking up? Interesting, since Free Comic Book Day is on Saturday. Oh, that's great. Oh, I hope you get some good comics. I'm not even sure what's going out right now. I read mostly DC comics right now. I'm not a big fan of what Marvel's putting out there. I think the absolute titles from DC are fantastic. Oh, thanks, Jesus. Thank you. Oh, yeah, The Little Mermaid. Somebody just asked me about Jonah Hauer. That's another one. The Woman King. Oh, my God. So many great movies. I love The Woman King. Oh, wow. Really a lot of great films. Future movie actor says, I do like Emma for this role, Grace. I'm happy for her. Also, Val Kilmer voiced both Moses and God and the Prince of Egypt. That's right. I think he did that because of the choice that Charlton Heston made. Maisie, look at you. Revenge of the Sith tomorrow, Thunderbolts for this weekend, and then Sinners the third time next week. That's fantastic. I'm really excited for how far Sinners might be able to go. Doctor Who-niverse says, Kerry Washington apparently is developing a Desperate Housewives reimagining for Disney. That's pretty interesting. I'll put a pin in that to see if we maybe discuss that in the next couple of days. I like Kerry Washington. She does a very good job. I liked it. She just did a movie about, black women serving in the military during World War II. She did a really nice job in that film. That was I forget the name of it, from Tyler Perry, but that's an excellent film that I would also recommend. It made me cry. It was really well done. Psycho says, Grace, would you consider joining Letterboxd? No, because you got to watch my videos. If I was on Letterboxd, you just look at the scores there. Well, let's see here. Guy Ty says, did you see Anthony Mackie getting another Cap? Do you see him getting another Cap film? I don't know. I think it's unlikely, to be honest with you. Let's see. Elliot says, Grace, do you think 1950s musicals like Singin' in the Rain, White Christmas, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, A Star is Born, etc. are underrated since 1960s musicals are more popular? What an interesting question, Elliot. I'd love to see you get your cinema, your film studies on. Singin' in the Rain is pretty iconic. I think it's in fact the most famous movie musical. So I wouldn't agree with that statement. But I think obviously Sound of Music and My Fair Lady, which actually came out the same year, that's a great dramatic story because Julie Andrews originated the role of Eliza Doolittle on Broadway, but they didn't think she was a big enough star for the movie, so they replaced her with Audrey Hepburn and had someone else do the singing for Audrey Hepburn off screen. But then Julie Andrews got picked up for Sound of Music same year and won, was it Mary Poppins maybe? Maybe Mary Poppins came out the same year as My Fair Lady. But yeah, that was just really interesting situation there. But yeah, Mary Poppins also a great musical. Oh, Harkins. I've never been to a Harkins, but I've heard of them. I'm not sure when The Boys is returning, Mike, but Gen V Season 2 is coming up first, and I think they said they're very close to like a trailer and stuff for that. I'm very excited. Fernando, you're seeing Beyonce? Have a great time. Juan Gabriel says, aren't Sinners International numbers worrisome? I don't think so. I think it'll be fine, especially when you do count in digital and streaming. And I think even without having strong overseas numbers, it has a chance of still making its money back, being a break-even situation. I think that the problem is that unfortunately diverse films don't always do well overseas, except if they're an action movie. Like China loves Fast and Furious and loves Dwayne Johnson. But I think other stories have had a harder time. Future movie actor says, given 20th Century's involvement in F4 First Steps, I think they're somehow connected to X-Men, Deadpool. I don't know. I don't think 20th Century is involved in Fantastic Four. Rodney Dollar says, Grace, with Now You See Me 3, could we see another Charlie's Angels or another Scooby-Doo or another Mummy film? I don't think Brendan Fraser would do another Mummy film. Oh, thank you. It's the 6888 that's the Netflix movie. I wouldn't put out a Charlie's Angels 3, to be honest with you. And Netflix is doing a live-action Scooby-Doo, so that's where you're going to see Scooby-Doo next. Thanks, Mr. Magic. That's very sweet of you. Jin says the 6888 was recognized by Congress today. Really? That's really nice. I really liked that movie. It did very well, thankfully, on Netflix. Adam DeSabato says, speaking of DC Comics, what are your thoughts so far on Hush 2? It's as bad as the first Hush, but Jim Lee's art's so pretty to look at. It's like pretty to look at, not much to say, but that's okay. I still am buying it and reading it, but I don't think it's that good. Ryan Palm says, what's for dinner tonight? Well, I have some whole wheat bread. I'm going to make bread with soft butter. I leave the butter out so it's easier to spread. I was at Paniquita Dan the other day and I got a French roll with some iced tea. And then they said, you want some butter? And I said, sure. And they gave me like a little plastic knife, to go. And I was standing there. I was like, I'll butter my bread before I leave. And the butter had just come out of the refrigerator, and that plastic knife snapped and flew across the room. And I felt really guilty about it. But I was like, maybe you should have given me butter that wasn't as hard as a frickin' rock. But anyway, so I'm having bread with butter. I'm going to have fried eggs over easy, which is how I like them. And then I'm going to have some salad. I just make some mixed greens, and I put a little balsamic vinaigrette on it. That's what I'm going to do while I watch Andor tonight. It's going to be fantastic. I wish Andor started earlier, though. I'm like, I don't want to wait till 9 o'clock to eat. They're like, ooh, Andor, watch television until midnight. And you're like, why don't you start these at 7 or 8 o'clock? At least 8. If they're going to drop 3 episodes, I think 8 would make more sense. Ross McCartan, I don't like the new Zatanna. I read a recent miniseries, but I don't like this new one. Obed says, hey Grace, what is your favorite type of donut? Mine are bear claws and sprinkles. I usually go to Dunkin' Donuts. I like a good chocolate glazed, like not chocolate glaze, but I like chocolate donut with glaze on it. I like vanilla with sprinkles. I'm a big fan of vanilla with sprinkles. I'm partial to a Boston cream occasionally. And then I also, what else did I like? Vanilla cream, if you can find them. Delicious. Keneal says, could Snyder be a good fit for X-Men in the MCU? No, I don't think so, no. Adam Sphere says, you don't like Hush, Grace. That was the graphic novel that got you into comics. That's great. I'm glad. I don't like Chris Claremont either. Ricardo just mentioned him for some reason. I didn't see what Chris Claremont said. I'm not a fan of Chris Claremont's writing. But, I certainly recognize the historical significance of Hush, but I think it's some of Jeff Loeb's weakest work. It's no Long Halloween or Dark Victory. Let me just tell you that. Krispy Kreme, a little too sugary for me. Oasis. Ryan, no, not the AMC donut holes. They haunt me forever. Doc, you're having chicken pot pies? That's delicious. I had chicken pot pies for Easter. That was a good choice. Adam Sear says, not much chatter about The Last of Us Episode 3. Nope, I told you that thing was going to fall on its face. All right, well, it's 1:04. I got lots going on. Thank you, Ryan K. Sorry to end so abruptly, but I got to get my week back on track because I got lots of Thunderbolts coverage coming. The movie seems not to have a lot of heat, but I'm still going to cover it like I'm supposed to, darn it. All right, everybody, have a wonderful rest of your day. There will definitely be a live stream on Friday. so that we can talk about Thunderbolts opening box office. And then the other live stream I'm aiming for either tomorrow or Thursday. All right? So have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Oh, by the way, I'm maybe going to do something for Andor tomorrow. So if you were on the fence about watching Andor tonight, you might want to try to watch Andor, just because we might do something fun with it tomorrow. I got to see how good the episodes are. All right, everybody, bye. Bye-bye.